listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh, glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. We're live at CKLU 96.7 FM here in the morning, coming to you live usually Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 8:30 each and every morning. I'm a little distracted this morning. Our Facebook, for some reason, hasn't been working. This morning. It's not working this morning. It might not work ever again, given the new laws that we have in Canada regarding news and social media. So I'm not sure. Like I said, every day is a miracle that we're on social media in general, YouTube or Facebook. So as of today, Facebook, every other page that I have is able to do a live stream on other than Sudbury News. So we're not sure. So it's nothing to do with my account in general, nothing to do with anything other than we just can't be live on Facebook, but we are live on YouTube. So we're at CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio. We're also CKLU.ca. If you click on the Radio Player Canada app, you can listen to us. You can also download the same Radio Player Canada app, take us with you, listen to us anytime, anywhere on your favorite device. So hopefully those on Facebook are able to see the message that I put about 10 minutes ago that we're only on YouTube today. And for those on the radio, I'll do my best to get the comments made on YouTube because they're not on Facebook anymore. A little harder to read sometimes on YouTube, although I do have YouTube up here on the big screen where usually I have Facebook. And so a little harder to read the comments from YouTube, but we'll still do our best. I'm glad that there's a few of us jumping on already here. This is the first time I've seen us live on YouTube on the screen, so didn't even know really what it looked like. Here you go. So every day's a new day, and you learn something every day. So let's jump right in. We have a couple people on so far, but let's dive right in. A lot to cover. We weren't on Monday or Tuesday, and today is Wednesday, September the 13th, 2023. We had a bit of a health issue in our family that we needed to attend to. And so now we are back, and thanks for all of the positive comments that people made regarding that. We really appreciate it. And so we'll have maybe a little bit more on that if time allows today, but we got lots to cover. There's a lot of news just from yesterday. Just even if we didn't have a show Monday or Tuesday, there's a lot to cover just for today's show for local news alone, let alone talking about the impact and some stories made on what the impact has been since Bill C-11 and Bill C-18, the Online News Act, has been upon us. Obviously I'm not able to stream on Facebook today, not really sure if that has something to do with that or not. Again, right, we're kind of in the dark in these things, but yeah, we'll have who's going to benefit from this financially, mainly, in a bit of a deep dive today. Hopefully a little bit on our election interference as well. But there's tons to talk about in local news. I don't even know if we'll have time to get to that. And beginning with local news, let's start with a little bit of weather. And we'll be back right after this. So Sudbury weather is brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently it's 9 degrees, mostly cloudy out there, and 95% humidity. Today, mainly cloudy, 60% chance of showers or drizzle. Wind becoming northwest 20 kilometers this morning. High of only 13 for today. The UV index is 4. Tonight, mainly cloudy, 60% chance of showers this evening, a low of 8. Thursday, clearing in the morning, high of 19, UV index is 5 or moderate. And a look at your 6-day forecast here, Thursday through Tuesday. It's going to be 19 degrees tomorrow, apparently, and mainly sunny. So that's pretty cool. Then Friday, sunny period, and 21 degrees. So it's going to be a nice Friday. Saturday, mix of sun and cloud, high of 20. So you got 19, 21, and 20 for the next 3 days. And then Sunday, 40% chance of showers, high of 18. Monday, 30%, and Tuesday, 30% chance of showers, 17 degrees and 19 degrees respectively for those 2 days. A look at your satellite. As of 12:30, just after midnight taken, you can see the cloud activity, a lot of precipitation going on north of Timmins and over the Quebec border. Other than that, just a lot of clouds everywhere, other than, the far northwest of Ontario. For those listening on the radio, I do my best to describe the satellite view. For those watching, you can see it. So make sure to catch the shows if you don't get a chance to in video, things that you might miss on the radio, on demand on YouTube. I'll do my best, and I will, share the link from our YouTube video onto our Facebook page, at least for those that only use Facebook. And we also have Twitter as well. So look for us on all social media, Sudbury News. So that's your Sudbury weather, brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with news headlines and a possible deep dive and some morning shout outs as we return right after this. So yeah, interesting morning. I get in here, I'm here early, which is great. I left a half an hour early this morning, and it's a good thing I did, because I had Wi-Fi issues I had to correct. Then each device had its own issues I had to deal with to get ourselves up on the internet. First of all, for the radio broadcast, and then I had to log into the computers at CKLU, which I don't normally have to do. All computers are wanting to reset and do, a reboot. So I'm kind of fighting that, making sure they don't do it mid-show. Then I'm not able to hook up to Facebook Live, which is, might have happened once before in the year and a half we've been doing this show. And as you remember, last show we did was Friday. Yeah, Friday. And comments weren't working Friday. And so I had to just read them off, at the time, Facebook. And so today the comments at least are working, but we're only on YouTube Live. So with that, I just wanted to let everyone know what's happening on my end. Monique, good morning. A lot of people have different names, right, on different social media platforms. And if you have a handle, I'll just say your handle if I'm not sure what your name is. So I apologize if I'm not sure what all of your handles are. But good morning, Sudbury. That's Monique. Thanks for joining us. Brian says, good morning, Nickel City campers. Also, Wednesday will be amazing. So wake up and smile. Happy hump day. Woo! Election interference. Let's get juicy. That's what we will hopefully be talking about a little bit later. It looks like later. Serenity. Good morning. Looking for a miracle from God? All you have to do is look in the mirror. So I think I know who that is, even though it's a different handle. Thanks for the positiveness on this Wednesday, hump day. We're grateful that we at least have some technology to have this show in the formats that we're delivering them on, the platforms, and in the format we're able to make a little guy like myself in a small city in Northern Ontario be able to get on each day and do a radio show and a live stream podcast about local issues, news, and events. And it's kind of humbling in some ways that we have, we have the community that we do, that we get on each morning. It's like getting together at our local cafe in the morning and just having a chat about things that we find interesting and that we care about in our community. And as the news develops, we just basically get them off the news sources, Sudbury.com, Sudbury Star, CTV, CBC, and try and unpack them in a short time, in an hour each morning. Not easy to do. And so we also have, it looks like, Catherine. Hi, y'all. Good morning, Catherine. Serenity again. Belinda, yes. Serenity now. I knew it was you. I definitely did, for sure. That's your handle on YouTube, for sure. I knew by your comment that you made this morning. So thanks for joining us, Belinda and Catherine. And here we go. Let's dive right in. No time to waste. This I heard on CBC coming in. We're getting our stories off of Sudbury.news, which is our local news aggregator, which now that we can't share news on social media, at least it's being able to be shared on a website for now, even though Google also said they're going to do their best to conform to whatever the government, is trying to make them pay for news. And so we'll have a little bit more insight into who is going to benefit from that. It's definitely not us, that's for sure, or the small guys or the independents. It's only going to be the big guns. But anyways, for now, until another bill comes out that will stop us from even having a news aggregator somehow, it'll make it dangerous, I don't know, or make it so that way they're telling us they're going to try and make our lives better for some reason and take down our site. You need your site taken off. It's all only for your good. You're going to be better off for it. So right now it's there though for the community to use. So you can get your CBC, Sudbury Star, CTV, and Sudbury.com stories, local stories, all aggregated into one convenient page right on the homepage. All their stories are there. So all local. And when you click on their stories, so just for those that are, we do have haters. Can you imagine that? It's weird, but we do. And I don't know why, but it is what it is. Takes all kinds. But we're not stealing stories. If anything, we're promoting local news on our website. It's putting it all in one location. And when you click on the story that you want to read, it goes directly to that news organization's website. They get the eyeballs, they get the clicks, they get the revenue from you reading their story. You found it though on us, on our website, and we're not going out asking, the government or those news organizations to pay us for the free advertising, because it just makes sense to do this and to help each other if we're in the same, industry. And that's what I do. I try and see if there's a need out there and try and fill it. If there's a need for the community, that's why we're doing what we're doing. No one else was doing this, so here now you're suffering with me, unfortunately. But this was needed, just to have a show like this and have a conversation, because it was getting so much so of just speak to the hand, talk to the hand, whether it's our local governments not being able to allow us to share our feelings on their social media pages, or news organizations not allowing us to comment on their social media pages and just telling us the news. And it takes the social out of social media. So there was a need for something like this, and I hope that it's constructive and it's informative and sometimes entertaining for y'all. Musician says he won't play Sudbury's Rib Fest again after making $50 for a set. Now that's a low amount of money. You might think, well, at $50, he only did one set of music, but as a musician, all the costs you have with guitar strings, guitars, recording your albums. Recording an album is very costly, time consuming. And a lot of musicians are local, and it takes their own money is being put into it. But here we have a country music personality, Mike Trudell. He's a signed artist, and he said he was only paid $50 for performing at a set in Ribfest in Sudbury. he and other musicians are calling for higher rate pay at large festivals. I think he sent them an invoice for like $800, and they said we only pay $50. He said that's not even enough for my drummer's gas. Comes in from further northern Ontario, right? And that's true. Musicians have always been exploited, and it's not cool. As a musician myself, I've had this, had to deal with this my whole life too. I seem to get into all the industries that don't pay anything, or that they're struggling, or they're broken, or they're just run by a few elites at the top of the industry and only a few benefit. So it's just me. I guess I'm a sucker for punishment. But hey, you got to do your passion. You got to live your passion. At the same time, at least the musicians are banding together, no pun intended, to help increase what the payouts will be for their services. And they're, who doesn't love to see live entertainment? Wouldn't you feel that they need to be compensated for their efforts, right? So anyways, a bit of a different model possibly. Maybe people throw money into something or whatever, or donate as they're watching the musicians, similar to busking when they go to an event. I mean, like tips, like you would do with a server at a restaurant. I don't know. That could be something to do as well. Okay, so moving on. Experts told the Ford government climate change threatens Ontario. Their report wasn't released for 8 months. A new report commissioned by Premier Doug Ford's government warns that climate change poses high risks to Ontario, with impacts on everything from food production to infrastructure and business. This is from CBC. I heard them talking about this on the way in, but it was like it's Mike Crowley. Crowley, have you ever heard of a famous Crowley before? Wonder if it's any relation. A new government commissioned report on the risks Ontario faces from climate change has been made public. After a summer that included stretches of extreme heat, heavy rainstorms, and unprecedented wildfire smoke, seen in this view of Toronto. There you go. No, it's not smog. It is smoke. However, I've seen smog in Toronto almost to the same degree in the past. A new report commissioned by Premier Doug Ford's government warns climate change poses high risk to Ontario, with impacts on everything from food production to infrastructure to business. The report, called the Provincial Climate Change Impact Assessment, projects a soaring number of days with extreme heat across Ontario, as well as increasing in flooding and more frequent wildfires. Presented to the government in January, but only posted publicly in late August, the government did not issue a news release about the report. It follows a summer where Ontarians faced, at times, extreme heat, heavy rainstorm, and unprecedented wildfire smoke. So, yeah, it follows a summer where Ontario has faced, at times, extreme heat. So if you take this into account, is there any other summer that's different than this? So this summer we faced, at times, extreme heat. Any summer you can think of before that we faced extreme heat at times? So, okay, no different there. Heavy rainstorms. Was there ever a summer you could remember where you never faced a heavy rainstorm? And unprecedented wildfire smoke. Now, there you got that one. There definitely was a lot more smoke. So, if anything, that was the difference this last summer. The report does the best job that's been done to date describing the impacts of climate change and extreme weather, said Blair Feltmate, head of the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo. It's a 530-page filled report, which often has grim details about the expected effects of climate change in Ontario, including the agriculture sector facing risks of declining productivity, crop failure, and livestock fatalities. Now, is that only due to climate change, or is it due to our cutting back on fertilizer and blaming cows for their flagellants and trying to cut back on livestock as well? So I don't know. As we see people just blaming climate change on these things. There's other policies at play too that have the same effect, the outcomes. So you have to be careful here when you're just taking a report on what climate change is doing and then what governmental policies are contributing to these outcomes as well, right? Most Ontario businesses will face increased risks due to climate change. I'm interested to hear what those risks would be to businesses. Climate risks are highest among Ontario most vulnerable populations, which I do agree with. I think the most vulnerable populations are at risk to government policies as well. They're the highest at risk to government policies. And will continue to amplify existing disparities and iniquities. Okay, so yeah, this is where the report came from. A team of researchers from the Sudbury-based Climate Risk Institute. We have a Sudbury-based Climate Risk Institute right here in Sudbury. I did not know that. This is interesting. They prepared the report, which the government commissioned in 2020, quite a while ago. The impacts of climate change are very apparent right now. They're very, very stark and quite serious, and this is expected to continue into the future, said Al Douglas, president of the Climate Risk Institute, in an interview with CBC. So for more on that, all you do, you go to sudbury.news, you click on the website, you go to the home page, you scroll down, you find that story, you click on it, you read more of it. And then CBC is able to monetize you clicking on their website and receive the revenue that they have from ads that they're able to do, along with being paid over $1 billion with your taxpayers' money. So that's the way you can also assist in helping the CBC this morning. And then also the report on climate change. You can actually read the report, I think. I hope they made it public for everyone to read, right? Okay, so let's see a couple comments coming in before we move on. About the musicians, for sure. Hello, good morning from Espanola. They admire China. It's the biggest carbon, which has the biggest carbon footprint. They want Canada to set the example, so we must be taxed to high heaven. It's Belinda. Thank you for that. Miles says Trudeau's carbon tax has been the biggest impact on food production. Right? Case in point, government policies and government overreach, I would even say myself. Okay, here you have, again, right? I believe I remember who you were, but it's not coming to my mind right now. But anyways, there's no difference between a count eating grass or a bunch of grass rotting in the ground if both turns into gas. There you go. 100% agree on that one. A cow. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. No difference between a cow, not an account. A cow eating grass or a bunch of grass rotting on the ground. Both turns into gas. Thank you for that. That's what I mean. I think we need to think bigger and think correctly on this whole issue. I mean, where's the story here? I think where it gets out of hand. If I can find it. Here was the headline, last month or something. Dr. Theresa Tam lists climate change and capitalism as drivers of negative health. So, our Chief Medical Officer of Canada lists climate change and capitalism as drivers of negative health. So, yeah. So where do we get the science on that one? I guess we'll have to stay tuned to see how they prove that. But it's a headline, and I guess if the Chief Medical Officer of Canada is saying it, people are going to listen to it, right, and take it seriously. Part of the problem is we're over-regulated on all fronts. Definitely over-regulation is an issue for sure. Here's CTV News. if Toronto is the 6, can the North become the 7? A new marketing campaign from Northeastern Ontario Tourism is branding Northern Ontario as the 7. And just a good morning to Mona. Thanks for joining us, Mona. I know it's different that we're only on YouTube this morning, NCKLU. But anyways, CTV talking about we're going to be marketed as the 7. I'm curious about this. I haven't had a chance to learn about this. This is my first opportunity right now, just as you're learning about this, I think, unless you've seen this already, but grateful for CTV and reporting on this. I'm anxious to see what this marketing team is thinking of by branding us as the 7 in Northern Ontario.
Well, Toronto, as you have no doubt heard, is affectionately called the 6 by hipsters and others. Now, Northern Ontario might be called the 7. It's part of a new branding and promotion campaign from Northeastern Ontario Tourism. And the organization's pitching the 7 as an alternative to the hustle and bustle of the 6. Joining me now to talk more about this new branding and pitch to draw visitors to our region is Trevor Beard with the Northeastern Ontario Tourism Group. Trevor, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, what prompted the idea for a rebrand? What was the idea for throwing this new name, the 7, out? Why now?
Well, the organization has had the same branding kind of since the beginning of Northeastern Ontario Tourism. And with travel trends constantly changing, visitors getting younger, we felt that it was time for the organization and the region as a whole to have a little bit of a refresh. And what better time to introduce a fresh new vibe to the region than post-pandemic when everyone's eager to get out and explore.
So, well, then tell me how you came up with the idea of calling our region the 7 and juxtaposing it with Toronto as the 6.
Yeah, so the 7 stemmed from a conversation I had almost 2 years ago with my board of directors. Again, coming back to post-pandemic, what the organization and the region could look like. I then took those conversations, sat down with my team here at Northeastern Ontario and our agency of record, The New Business, to brainstorm what that could look like. And the 7 was born. And, I could say that it's a take on the 705 area code. I can say that it's the antidote to Toronto's the 6. But really, to us, it's much larger than that. It's about city quitting, escaping hustle culture, and it's really about a vibe more than anything. So we wanted to kind of create a brand that was focused around attracting the next generation of traveler, but also a brand that would resonate with the older traveler coming on that kind of nostalgia vibe.
I'm looking on your website here, and there's a longer list than 7 of things that we enjoy here in Northern Ontario. Canoeing, loon calls, sand in your backpack, splinters, sunburns, bug bites, burned marshmallows, smell of an outboard motor, that kind of thing. It's interesting stuff you put on your website. Do you think that'll turn some heads?
I hope so. I mean, for me, the brand, I grew up in Timmins. I was born and raised there. So everything about this brand, brings me back to my childhood, that nostalgia vibe, that time before technology, if you will. Spending the summers at the camp with my family and just living in the moment, playing cards with my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, sitting around the campfire with my cousins, roasting marshmallows, telling stories, heading out to the lake to catch the fish. And just kind of creating memories that I still cherish to this day. So again, it all comes back to just wanting to help that next generation of visitors create those kinds of memories as well, and while also taking the older generation back to those nostalgia moments.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of how a lot of us grew up. Quickly, you only got about 20 seconds left. How and when will you be able to measure the success of this campaign?
So we're really hoping to connect on an emotional level with this campaign. So through organic shared content, comments, we really just hope that people resonate with what we're presenting. We've also launched a store, so shop at northeasternontario.com. And we've also integrated a new online booking platform called Booker. So we're hoping to measure through sales in the near future as well.
Okay, good luck with it. Thanks for talking with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I've been speaking with Trevor Beard from Northeastern Ontario Tourism, and for more on this new campaign and the rebranding of the region, calling it the 7, you can go to our website and find the link to Northeastern Ontario Tourism and the 7.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of things coming to my mind. The 7 didn't do a great job explaining why. He said a lot of people would think maybe it's to do with the 705 area code, or it's just the number after Toronto being 6 and 7. From my understanding, it was the I thought it was the 416 area code that got Toronto that nickname, if you will, the 6. And so I think Cliff Skelter, who was the marketing mind behind naming our basketball team the 5, was pretty much, on that same wavelength. Like what? When did the 5 start? What? 6 years ago? 5 years ago? And so the 7, it's on the same concept of branding us as a number based on, a nickname like Toronto. I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't know if people are going to start calling us the 7. And what is the 7? All of Northern Ontario? Where does the region start? Where does it end? Is it Thunder Bay? Is it all the way to Ottawa? Like, where's the 7? Is it just the area code? Is it Barrie as well as the 7? I don't know. To me, it wasn't explained enough, and marketing to me needs to be consistent and connect dots and it sends a message. There's a message when you're marketing, and I don't know what the message is there. I just kind of scratch my head. I guess it's a great idea, but they're actually gone out and they're throwing money at this thing, and they got the website and your tax dollars at work to, remember, was it mysudbury.com? And we spent like over $1 million of our city money on this website that doesn't even exist anymore. Something like that. You know what I mean? It's just, I see this time and time again, and it's interesting. Yeah, you might be a fan. The 7. I will predict that dust never catches on. You'll never hear anyone in Toronto say, "Oh, I'm going to go up to the 7 and spend a vacation." Or maybe one person would. It might be a relative of someone on the board there, or the executive director we heard from. And no disrespect, many marketing a campaign in the past have grandiose launches and whatever, and they just fizzle out, right? So I myself would think it's probably going to be like that. But yeah, time will tell. The 7. What do you think? The 7. Okay. And I also think there's probably bigger fish to fry and bigger things going on than the rebranding. I don't know. Do we even need it? People know what's going on up here. Denise saying the Espanola mayor harassed OU and through the police, said you couldn't stand on the sidewalk, and asked for the line. Asked for the fine. He said, "No, it's arrest." I offered him to arrest me, and he left. Public sidewalks. Okay, so you guys were protesting this recently. Yeah, well, protesting is definitely an interesting thing when you, I remember back in the day a band called, a rap group called Public Enemy. They had a song called Fight the Power. And power was different back then, right? Power was the way that it was, and I think it was the mainstream conservative type power they were talking about. Power has shifted now, and power is in different hands. It's in the hands of those that were fighting the power before, and we're finding that they don't treat anyone any differently when you're fighting them. Power acts pretty similar whenever power faces opposition. It usually reacts the same, regardless of who's in the position, right? So it doesn't surprise me one bit. And speaking of deeper things or heavier things, or issues that are probably more important than what we call ourselves, like the 7. Here's a headline here: number of opioid-related deaths and ER visits ease a bit in the Sudbury area, but still the region's mortality rate is almost, get this, 3 times higher than the provincial rate for opioid death in Sudbury. I don't know about you, that can't be good. To me, that definitely cannot be good. And this is Sudbury Star reporting on this. A total of 33 people in the Sudbury Manitoulin districts died from an opioid-related overdose in the first 4 months of 2023. Preliminary figures released Tuesday by the region's health unit show. That's down from 42 people who died during the same period this last year, said the report compiled by the Community Drug Strategy and published on the Public Health Sudbury and District's website. Nevertheless, the numbers for January and April, January to April 2023, represents a local annualized mortality rate of 47.6 deaths per 100 population per year, significantly higher than the rate in Ontario overall, 17 deaths per 100,000 population per year. So yeah, that is definitely over three times higher. 2022 numbers showed a local annualized mortality rate of 61 deaths per 100,000 population per year, significantly higher than the rate in Ontario overall, which was 16.9 deaths per 100,000. In all, 112 residents of the Sudbury and Manitoulin districts died from opioid-related overdoses in 2022, representing a local annualized mortality rate of 54.1 deaths per 100,000 population per year. That is significantly higher than the comparable rate of 16.8 per 100,000 per year, the Community Drug Strategy reported. Now, that's a lot of comparisons, which are almost all the same numbers. But here you go. 54.1 deaths per 100,000 in Sudbury compared to 16.8. Wow, that is a lot more deaths in our city. What is the reason for that? Why does Sudbury have more deaths related to opioids than other cities? Right? So that's the question most of us are asking. So let's see here. So Belinda says, so much mismanagement of money. Since COVID, our country has descended into poverty. For sure. Hey, David, how you doing, my friend? Glad to see you here on YouTube. Good morning. And Denise says 2019 Espanola Mill was given $28.8 million for upgrades, then sold in 2021 to another paper company. They now are selling. Where'd the $28.8 million plus go? Question, very good question again, right? Did the money get used for upgrades in the mill, or was it just pocketed? I think someone needs to look into that. I would contact your MP for that. Okay, so here also we have sticking on the subject we've been talking about. Sudbury man dies after ingesting cocaine laced with fentanyl. He and another man were found unconscious. The other man survived and has pleaded guilty to manslaughter. A second man charged in the case is still before the courts. So yes, so drug problem in Sudbury, I think is a huge issue, right? This is also reporting from the Sudbury Star. When workmates Joshua McInnes and Chris Longarini got together, Longarini's parents' home in Coppercliff, to snort some cocaine on August 16th last year. They were found unconscious on the floor the next day. McInnes was taken to Health Sciences North and survived, and Longarini, unfortunately, who was 48, did not. A post-mortem and toxicology testing determined that he had died of acute fentanyl intoxication because the cocaine he ingested had been cut with fentanyl. In the Ontario Court of Justice on Tuesday, McInnes, 31, pleaded guilty to manslaughter and possession of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. McInnes, who is out on bail, will be sentenced on November the 8th. Sad, sad, sad. And I think I'm going to predict that this will not only continue, but it'll get worse if we do not take action the correct actions on the use of drugs in our, not only our society, but more importantly, for those here, our community. And what's going on with this? I've been noticing this too. Another youth has gone missing from Sudbury. Miles, who's 14, is believed to be in the company of Oliver, who is also 14. Just so people can see a picture, we'll get this on full screen. Those on the radio, you'd have to either just go to our website, Sudbury.news, and click on the Sudbury Star article on this to see the picture, or because it's not shared on social media very much anymore, news stories. So anyways, harder to get this kind of information. Or just watch the show after on demand on YouTube. So here's a picture of Miles here, who is missing, and so many other youth as well. We're wondering why, what's going on. Police are appealing to the public for help in locating a youth who is believed to be in the company of another teen reported missing yesterday. He's 14. His name's Miles. Last seen on Monday around 11 a.m. on Murray Street in Sudbury, right off Notre Dame. He's described as 5 foot tall, 100 pounds, black hair and brown eyes. He's believed to be in the company of particular Oliver, who's also 14, who was last seen on Friday in the Donovan area. And here's a picture of Oliver. Just get him up on the screen. So if you've seen these two young men, make sure to contact police as they are concerned with their whereabouts. And so much of this going on, right? Lately, along with drug overdoses, more than 3 times higher than the provincial average here in Sudbury. Keeping with the theme, I guess, of today's show, Sudbury's increase in violent crimes and gun calls unsettling, says the police chief. Tougher bail laws, more police officers, and support for people dealing with mental health challenges are needed. I would also say drug issues as well. Maybe they didn't include drug issues because they feel we're already dealing with them. But how's that working for us, right? How is what we're doing so far working for us? Are we seeing any progress with that? Keep pushing into smart cities and disregard the death toll of these poor souls, addicted, homeless. It's a shame. It's Belinda. Miles says, I heard Espanola Mill needs a few billion to upgrade it to make it viable. Really? It doesn't make production goals like other mills with less manpower. I was not aware of that. Thanks, Miles, for letting us know. Have to look into that. It's not a good thing if that's the case for Espanola and the mill. Espanola Town Hall empty last night again. That's Denise. Thanks for that. Also, Catherine, hope those boys are found quickly, and so do I. So Police Chief of Sudbury, a lot of Sudbury Star articles today. Had a couple CBCs and a CTV, and I don't know if we had a Sudbury.com one yet, but we will probably have one before we end today. Greater Sudbury has seen a steady increase in violent crime over the last 5 years, according to statistics provided by Greater Sudbury Police Service. In response to what appears to be a surge into gun-based violence in the city, 3 shootings in the last 30 days, 1 deemed accidental, the Sudbury Star requested local crime statistics from the 2018 date from GSPS as it pertains to violent crime, attempted murder, firearms-based violence, and drug trafficking. While the city's police chief says it paints a disturbing picture of what is happening in the city, the phenomenon is occurring across the country and continent, albeit to a greater degree in larger metropolitan centers where being caught in the crossfire or the victim of an unprovoked attack are more likely to occur. According to statistics provided by Greater Sudbury Police Service, there were 2,030 incidents of violent crimes reported and investigated in 2018. I'm going to say that number again. There were 2,030 incidents of violent crime reported and investigated in 2018 before the pandemic. That number increased to almost 3,000 in 2022. So that's almost an increase of 1,000 per year. That's A lot of increase. So far this year, there have been almost 17. There's only two shy of 1,700 violent crimes. Violent crimes include sexual assault, harassing, communication, and threats, which now can be reported online through the relatively new reporting system, Cop Logic. I did not know about this reporting system called Cop Logic. If you need to report something to the police, police have noted an increase in reports since the tool was implemented. So maybe we'll get even more if we're analyzing numbers from year to year, maybe even more in this year because of this particular tool, that reporting tool that we're going to be using. It has 70 plus year equipment. So this is back to the Domtar thing. Miles is saying 70 plus year equipment and barely reaches 500 tons of pulp a day, where Alberta mills make 3,000 tons of pulp a day. You heard from an insider. Interesting. Wow. We have someone who has access to an insider in the industry, which is really cool. I'll have to get your input on some other issues now knowing this, Miles, going forward. So anyways, all kinds of crime on the uptick in Sudbury. Not good. Opioid crisis. We have over 3 times the Ontario average of opioid deaths in Sudbury. We have massive crime on the rise. There is, here it's not really emphasizing that the violent crimes are related to drugs. However, I would say that would need to be, unpacked a bit more. What is the relation to our crime and drugs specifically in our city? I would say pretty high myself. Oh boy, online police reporting, not good. That's Brian. Belinda says the biggest gift we have to each other is how much could we accomplish if we are united in our fight for humanity? Well said, and that is true. I mean, if it's the person that we're caring about and not the political party or leaning or the funding or all these things, and you actually care about the person, you want them rehabilitated, you want them off of these substances, and you want them to get their life back or have a life in the first place if they haven't had one to begin with, meaning a good quality of life. And that's what caring about our fellow human being would be, right? I've heard a lot of people from, let's say, a more communist ideology saying, well, we need, all these government programs that are going to care about all these people. Well, if you see government, communist type thinking in caring about people, they usually don't go hand in hand. The idea is to care about all people and all people are equal, but it usually never ends up like that. And there's many, many examples you can take from that, meaning any country that's communist ever in history, and see how they've handled their poor people or their vulnerable, or, they just make everyone poor and vulnerable. So it's easy that way. They didn't make a 2-class system, the government and the people. And if you're not the government, you're the people. And maybe you are, you can be an oligarch in these countries too. Like if you're doing the government's bidding, but as soon as they want to shut you down, they just press a button and you're gone. As soon as you do anything against the government. So anyways, that's a little bit of a rant on political, how we politically solve these problems. And I think it's more grassroots than big government coming in, making, programs and giving out millions of dollars. Doesn't seem to be doing anything so far. I don't think it's going to do anything in the future. I think it really takes your everyday average people to start grassroots initiatives and really help our common people. Correct, right? So are we just praying for help, or are we actually getting out there and doing things? I think is what you're meaning, Denise, on this front. Noel says Northern Ontario needs to be a separate province. From Southern Ontario, Southern Ontario simply do not understand what's required to live in Northern Ontario. I would have to agree with you on that. It would definitely make more sense. Our representation would definitely understand the issues in Northern Ontario and be able to meet the needs of Northern Ontarians a lot better. And the money that's coming out of Northern Ontario that's basically enriched Bay Street in Toronto all these years and continues to do that, would stay in Northern Ontario, and we'd be able to provide for ourselves a lot better than centralized larger government, right? I like the wavelength that you're on there. So here's a headline here. Liberal news bill could enrich CBC by $172 million. You know, we're talking about Bill C-11, Bill C-18. What's it going to do? Is it really going to help all of news the way Justin Trudeau has positioned it, or was that just his way of kiboshing all independent media who in the past, outwardly shows disdain for and does not want independent media because doesn't want real journalists asking real questions, right? So it made an, Bill C-11, Bill C-18, the Online News Act, to, in principle, force big social media companies to pay for the material that's uploaded onto their sites, which really the media outlets themselves said, there's no need to do that. It's basically advertising for us, and then people click on it, and then it goes to our websites anyways, in which that's how we monetize. But anyhow, the government thought that they could at least shut down all media other than the media they want in the with telling people it was for their own good and telling people it was to make money. But it is going to make money for one outlet, and that's CBC. CBC could make $172 million as a result of the deals signed with social media giants under the Online News Act, or Bill C-18, passed this year by our Liberal government. It would make the CBC the largest beneficiary of the law, which has been described by critics as a shakedown of social media companies like Google and Facebook. According to the draft regulations, media companies can receive compensations for news links shared on the social media platforms based on the number of full-time journalists they have employed. That's the way the legislation reads. You get more money based on the more journalists you have employed in your organization. So what does this do to organizations that have one or two people? Obviously, it's rigged right from the beginning to put them out of business. Even if Google or Facebook was to pay independent media, it would be very low compared to what it pays people like the CBC. The former Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commissioner, Vice Chair Peter Menzies, has done some analysis of estimated payouts and found that the CBC employed the largest share of journalists in all of Canada, meaning it would likely be the biggest beneficiary of the law. The CBC already receives $1.2 billion in taxpayer funding from the Canadian taxpayers each year. Menzies told the Globe and Mail, "I'm a big fan of having a public broadcaster, but not a large commercial competitor eating everybody else's lunch." According to the University of Ottawa internet law expert Michael Geist, the way the law is written means that smaller independent media outlets will see little to no benefit relative to large companies like that of the CBC. Geist goes on to say, on the relative compensation issue, it's a clear advantage for the CBC and other big broadcasters. But the small players, hundreds of independent media outlets, will lose out. Now, I wonder what the advisors to the Trudeau government were saying about all this when he was putting together with his minions the bills themselves and passing them through. Do you think anyone would have said, you know what? This might put all the small guys out of business. Do you really want to do that? I wonder if any of them said that to him, or I wonder if he came up with it himself. When the law was being debated in the House of Commons, Conservatives argued that the CBC should not be eligible under the bill because it is already publicly subsidized. CBC from day one should have been excluded from the funds of C-18. I've heard from many smaller media organizations that say they simply can't compete with the public broadcaster. Duh. How can you compete with publicly funded money? That's the whole socialistic, communistic model in the beginning. How do you compete with government money when it's paying for everything? One business gets a grant of $1 million and its competitor doesn't. Who do you think's at advantage from that? Government going around throwing money, trying to, influence the economy. It just becomes your friends. Look at Doug Ford and the Greenbelt. It just becomes your friends who get that money anyways, right? So why would you want big government doing these things? It just becomes them and their friends and not you. Not you. Okay? So CBC from day one should have been excluded from this. CBC spokesperson, though, Leon Marr, has since stood by the public broadcaster's inclusion in the bill. I wonder why. It will help ensure that all Canadian media organizations, regardless of their size, are able to receive fair compensation for their content produced when that content is used by digital companies to attract and keep people on their platforms and generate revenue, Marr told the Globe and Mail. So that's classic CBC, right? We just heard exactly what's happening, but this is the spokesperson from CBC saying, no, facts aren't real. It will actually help ensure all Canadian media organizations, regardless of their size, even though we heard experts saying, no, it'll put people out of business if they're smaller, and they're going to get the lion's share of the money, even though they get $1.2 billion of your tax money. This is their spokesperson. It will help ensure that all Canadian media organizations, regardless of their size, are able to receive fair compensation for the content they produce when that content is used by digital companies to attract and keep people on their platforms and generate revenue. There you go. Classic CBC right there. So that's what you're going to get. That's all that's going to be available in the upcoming years. So lucky you. And that's all the time we have. So lucky you. The show is now over. Many comments coming in. Just want to get them up on the screen as we are closing out the show. I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday, hump day. We'll be back, God willing, same time, same place, on, I guess, YouTube tomorrow. If you don't see us on Facebook, we'll be on YouTube until we're not, and then we'll just have to be on Rumble and on our website. So until then, have a great, wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. And stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM, CKLU.ca. Ciao, everyone.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.